official, I guess you would say. And last week when we left, I had 3 people come up to me and they were like, I had a question about that, but I didn't feel like I was supposed to ask the question. And that goes against everything that we are. There's a lot of places where you can go sit and listen. This is a place where you come sit and get involved. And so we usually start off with something that some of y'all may be unfamiliar with. I'll ask who had a nudge this week. And so what a nudge is, basically, is you've ever been driving down the road, and I know for people who've heard this, I use the same one every time. I'll get a new one day. But you're driving down the road, and you see this person sitting on the side of the road. Maybe they're broke down. Maybe they're just standing there. And you feel down deep. You're like, man, I should stop and help them. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But you get that feeling. I should stop and help them. All right? Let's say you do stop and help them. Let's put ourselves in their shoes. Let's say they're out of town. They're way away from home. They're in an area that they don't know anybody. And they're broke down and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go, and they're like, God, if you're real and you're there, send somebody to help me. And then all of a sudden you pull up just because you had a feeling, hey, I should stop and help these people. And so you pull up, you stop, you get out. You see, at that point in time, you were a miracle for that person. Because they had just prayed, God, if you're real, if you're really out there, I need some help. And then you pull up and you're like, hey, I was just driving by and I had this nudge that I should stop and help you. And so that's what we call nudges. In the Bible, in Revelation, it says that they, us, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And so we like to start off, we didn't last week, but we usually like to start off with nudges where I'll say, hey, who had a nudge this week? This is your opportunity to raise your hand if you have one. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask it every week anyway. Because you never know. You never know where that nudge is going to be. I know I had 3. The number pops out 3, but I can't remember any of them right now. So we'll pass that up. You failed me.
No. But it wasn't a good one.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm just picking. Brittany always has a nudge every week. So last week we spoke on they will remember how you make them feel. All right? And so, there was a couple of questions in there, a couple of challenges in there about people you work with. And I want to revisit that. I want to go back to it because I gave 2 examples. It was the guy that at work that's always pointing out your flaws, or maybe the person that never takes your advice, and how do we react to that? Today, we're still going to stay on that. I'm going to take it in a different direction. I apologize. We have half of our people out of town, and I've been out of town until 4 a.m. yesterday. So I don't have my notes in front of me, so forgive me if I seem slow in gathering my thoughts. But I know the direction that the Lord wants to take us. We all know that person, that people are drawn to, that people want to be around. They want to be part of their life. They want to be their friend. We at GoChurch, we will be judged by how we treat not the greatest of those among us, but how do we treat and how do we make feel the least of those among us? It's easy to treat somebody who can help you, who can benefit you, with honor, with greatness. Somebody who, maybe your boss that can give you a promotion, or somebody who has a lot of money when you're broke, or somebody who has a nice boat when you like to ski. Those type people, it's easy to treat very good. But what about the people that have absolutely nothing to offer you? What about the people that can benefit you worldly wise in no way? How do we treat them? How do we treat the person, that everybody is like, oh, man, it's Devin again walking through the doors. How do we treat the people that nobody else, that the world deems that they're not going to benefit you? How do we make them feel? I have a habit of looking, I try not to look at people. I look at the surroundings, the fruit of people. So when you look at somebody who kids flock to, who kids run to, you know, the world says that kids have nothing to offer an adult. They have no benefit, you know. But look at how somebody treats the kids. Do the kids run to them? Do they flock to them? They flock to Jesus. They ran to Jesus. They flocked to Jesus so much that the disciples were like, yeah, get out of here, get out of here. And Jesus had to stop them and say, no, wait a minute. You know, don't ever stop them from coming to me. For such is the kingdom of heaven. You know. So, for right now, I want everybody to think, we all have that one person that aggravates us, that one person that gets on our nerves, that one person that we hate to see pull into work, that one person. So I want you to think about that one person. Close your eyes and think about that one person right now, whoever it may be. And refusing to close your eyes doesn't mean that you're not thinking about them. I know you're still thinking about them. Now I want you to think about the last interaction you had with them. The very last interaction that you had with that person. Whatever it may have been. Now, instead of that interaction being in real life, I want you to picture that you're standing before God and He's replaying that interaction for you. Is this a pleasant thought? Or is it a, oh shoot thought? You know? All right. You can open your eyes. Because you see, the Bible says that we will be judged on every idle word. I believe that we'll also be brought to remembrance every idle action of how we treat people. How we make them feel. You know, there's always people in our lives. It's always a choice. We're always given a choice to build somebody up or to tear them down. We're always given a choice to make somebody feel better about themselves or less about themselves. You know, it's a choice that we make. And it's a choice that takes a lot of time and energy to go through and do. I mean, especially when you got friends like I've got over here. You know, I mean, sometimes you got to work hard, but in seriousness, to build somebody up. You know, way too quiet. Is everybody getting this? Everybody understands this? Everybody understands where I'm going. There's no questions. There's no concerns. Do what? Oh, well. But you know, it's something that is not that it's a one-time fix. This is something that I catch myself with all the time. And it's like, oh man, what did I just do? How did I just treat that person? Because I guarantee you, I did not walk away from this instance or that instance with that person going, man, he's just like Jesus. He was Christ-like. You know? But yet that's what we're called to be. And we will always be judged not on our greatest moments. The world will always judge us by our least moments, by our worst moments, by our failures. You know? And this is something that we wake up every morning and we choose to do. You know? I have somebody in my life who is always very encouraging. He's always very. He's never, even if he's putting you down and basically telling you you have no clue what you're doing, you shouldn't be here. You leave there feeling encouraged. How many people have a friend like that? Oh man, well y'all need to get one. I have one, and they're very good to have in your life because it's the people that I want to be like. You know, when I leave somebody, I want to leave them. We touched on this last week, and we're gonna touch on it again because alone by itself, what I've said is nothing more than a motivational self-help speech. You should make people feel good about themselves. You know, we spoke about the lady caught in adultery last week. She was thrown at the feet of Jesus. You know, and at that point in time, the religious leaders were there. And she chose to follow the outcast of the religious community that day. She chose to follow Jesus. Because we tend not to follow people that want to kill us. We tend not to follow people that want to hurt us. We tend not to hang around people that don't like us. And I use this, but we could use modern day examples. We could use the example of the lady, I forget the names, but everybody assumes and feels that they're rightfully so at assuming that she killed her daughter. Casey Anthony. When that happened, and you look at the Facebook chatter, what I saw on Facebook, because most of my friends on Facebook at that time were quote-unquote Christians or pastors or deacons, and I kept seeing there's a special place in hell for her, or judgment is coming her way, and I can't wait. And it seems like that we were very excited and looking forward to justice and judgment, and we completely forgot about mercy and grace, because it's easy to want justice and judgment for somebody else, but justice and judgment for ourselves ends with us in hell right beside it. And so it's easy to look at somebody else's sin and say, well, that's so much worse than mine, but a murderer is going to end up in the same hell as a liar. And I don't want to show of hands, but how many people told a lie this week? That's something we overlook, and we're like, it was just a little small lie. Yeah. Tell them I'm not here. Tell them I'm not home. That's a lie. Like it or not, that's a lie. And when you start looking at it, there's, So, back to my point. People will remember how they make you feel. People will follow you if you make them feel of worth. People will follow you if you make them feel of value. We're called to lead people to Jesus. You can't lead somebody to Jesus if they're not willing to follow you. And I can guarantee you, if you make somebody feel like dirt, they're not going to want to be anything like you or your Jesus. They're going to want to have nothing to do with you. So how we make people feel is very instrumental in how we lead people to Jesus, which is our number one calling. So when we think back about that one person that gets on our nerves. Well, you were fixing to correct my pronunciation.
Yes,
Pronunciation.
Yes, my pronunciation. But it's not something that's just going to happen. It's not something that just happens. Let's say we choose to get up and follow a bus this morning. And we follow that bus, and then this evening we decide, okay, we don't want to follow that bus anymore. And tomorrow morning we wake up. That bus is no longer there. You can't say, okay, I'm going to start following that bus again. You have to find the bus to follow it again. Because if you're not going where the bus is going, you're not following the bus. It's a decision that you have to make every second. How we treat people is a decision that we have to make when we wake up that morning. It's a decision we have to make when the phone rings. How am I going to treat this person? It's a decision we have to make when the doorbell rings. How am I going to treat this person? When the office door opens, how am I going to treat this person today? It's not something that, hey, we got saved and all of a sudden we're going to start treating people great. This is a decision that we make every morning, every day, every time. And that person may aggravate you to the day you die. But how are you going to interact in that situation? How are you going to treat that person today? How are you going to make them feel? Are you going to be the hands and feet of Jesus? Because the only other option is being the hands and feet of somebody other than Jesus. So, and this is something that, like I said, a lot of times it's going to be a decision that you are going to make after the fact. Oh, crap. I was supposed to treat him better than that. But as long as you're remembering it, as reputation goes, as we start to treat people better, as we start to treat them and make them feel, because in essence, people are drawn to God by the goodness of God. You know, we've all worked, and we're like, you know, you have the theory at work, hey, you catch more flies by honey, you know. They're coming in and they're telling all this, you know, trying to force us to do stuff instead of giving us incentives, you know. So how many people this week made a change in how you treated somebody from last week? Was it difficult?
Yes.
It was a conscious decision that you had to make.
Yes.
How did you feel afterwards?
Better.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
So how many people are planning on treating somebody different this week? But you see, here's the point of it. The point of it is not just to treat somebody better so they feel better about themselves, so they go to hell feeling better about themselves. By treating someone better, by treating someone and making them feel better about themselves, by treating someone to where they want to be around you, that's what earns you the right to tell them about Jesus, to lead them to Jesus. So what do you think about that? Brandon? You shook your head, so. That's true. Y'all are still way too quiet. See, I picture when Jesus was around his disciples, it was not quiet. I think they were constantly talking amongst themselves, talking with Jesus. And this is no different from that. I'm not calling myself Jesus by any means, but we all here are represented. We represent Jesus. If you call yourself a Christian, that means that you're Christ-like. That's why they were called Christians. That's why Peter was first called a Christian, is because they looked at him and couldn't tell a difference. Said he's just like Jesus. He's just like Christ. He's a little Christ. You know, where you go, you represent Jesus. You know, there's a story of a pastor of this church, and so this church is having kind of a launch date, kind of like we had. And so at this launch date, they wanted everybody to come in through the front door so they could see the grandeur of everything. So they locked all the doors except for the front door. And so everybody had to come in through this front door. And this is a big church. This is a church of about 3,000 to 5,000. This is also a true story. And so they lock all the doors. They got the church real nice, you know, and they're all the people are coming in through these front doors. And lo and behold, that's the one day that this old drunk decides to try to warm up near the front doors, up in the hedges. And so, you know, all the people walk past him, going in. There were a few people that stopped and talked to him. There were at least one that invited him in. And whether it was for didn't want to bring him to the front, or whether it was because the guy that invited him in usually sat on the back, or maybe it was because he was like, hey, you know what, I don't want to, you know, most visitors like to sit on the back. So they sat on the back row. And I'm sure most people have heard this, that they got up to announce that they had a new pastor starting, and that was the new pastor, was the guy that had dressed like a drunk out on the front. This has happened many times since then. Originally it happened in New Orleans. I had the privilege of meeting that pastor. And he walked up, and his opening sermon was, okay guys, obviously we've got a lot of work and a long way to go. I'll see you all next Sunday. And that was the end of it. You know, we treat those that we think have something to offer us usually better than the people that we feel have nothing to offer us. But we never know who that person is. You don't know that the person over here in the Dorset Hotel has nothing to offer you because you don't know them. They're in a bad situation of their life, maybe. They're doing some self-destructive things, maybe. But you don't know what they have to offer you. You don't know what they have to offer the kingdom of God. I can tell you that Satan comes against those with talents really hard. Most of the time when you find somebody that's down and out, it's because they have a lot to offer the kingdom.